Ooh, welcome back to Up in the Blue Seats, our New York Rangers podcast from the New York Post. Jake Brown here, alongside Rangers beat writer for the Post, Mollie Walker. Our Hall of Famer, Larry Brooks, will join us in just a little bit. Molly, the Rangers going to Columbus, Ohio. Your final stop on your NHL World Tour is done. In a couple of minutes, we'll also get your top 5 NHL arenas around the globe. So looking forward to that. But they needed that Monday after Sunday losing to the Canadiens, and a team that seems to struggle against bad teams. Losses to the Canadiens, the Blackhawks, the Senators, the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, the Sharks. They've lost to some lower level last place, second and last place teams. Well, they made up. They got revenge. Halak got a win, and that was a good one to redeem themselves on Monday.
I always think about the concept of playing down to your opponents and how easy that must be. So the fact that the Rangers have kind of fallen victim to that a few times this season, which the season has just been anything but normal for them. I mean, it's kind of been all over the place. It kind of just makes sense. It kind of just fits the narrative of this Rangers team this season. And yeah, that game against Montreal on Sunday was kind of a dud, pretty blah, but I think Barclay Goodrow said it best after the game in Columbus. They were happy that they were able to have a game the very next night so they can wash that taste out of their mouth, and that's exactly what they did. They took care of business. I wouldn't say they cruised to a win because the third period was a little lopsided. The Blue Jackets had their push. And they scored. I think it was just over a minute into the third period. And, for a hot second there as a writer, you're sitting there and you're like, do I keep writing? Or, because this game can always turn on its head, especially with this Rangers team. You never really know what's going to happen. But they pulled it out, they gutted it out, and they really needed that one. And they're just continuing on this pretty nice tear that they're on that's been going on since December 5th. So, that's what they got to do, because I'm pretty sure Monday night, every other team in the Metro won as well. So there's quite literally no room for error going forward. And the Rangers are going to have to pick up as many points as they possibly can just to stay in the race in the Metropolitan Division. So it was definitely a much needed bounce back win.
And stats that matter here that only I can provide for everyone. Since the first night of Hanukkah, Halak is 4-0. So
Yes.
that's an important stat to notice that you won't get on New York's Rangers stats and info. 4-0. And that was something early in the year. We were getting questions every week. Do the Rangers need to get a goalie? And they also don't have a problem in the AHL. Well, Louis Domingue was AHL goalie of the week. Mm-hmm. So if Halak were to struggle, they got someone down there. But a good sign that, if God forbid Igor did go down, Halak has played pretty well the last month.
I really feel for Halak because I think the game in Columbus was the second time of those 4 straight wins where he gives up a goal in the third period, ends the shutout bid. He's come so close a couple times now. So I know that's got to sting a little bit for him, but you're right, Jake. I mean, he's been just about as good as they could ask for from their backup. He's been solid. He comes up with saves when they need them. And I've written about it before. I mean, the Rangers needed a backup goalie who is comfortable with a backup role. That was not something that Alex Georgiev was comfortable with, understandably. I mean, he's doing pretty well in Colorado for himself. And that's a testament to betting on himself and believing in himself. And you always got to admire that from any player in any sport. But in order for the Rangers to take that next step, not only just as an organization, but in the playoffs, hopefully, everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be on board with their role. And that clearly was something that was not the case for Alexander Georgiev, again, understandably. But Halak is a seasoned veteran. He's been around the block, and he is very comfortable in this role. And I think that he's starting to get his feel back for the game, and he's looking like a seasoned veteran in goal. And that's all the Rangers could ask of him.
Well, the Rangers on Thursday got their feel back in about the last second of the game. I mean, the one game you're not, you might have been 7 martinis deep by then. I don't know. Cosmos, you're updating your IG. Do you still run that Cosmos IG account?
I got a new phone and I just never logged back into that account. So we could forget that ever happened.
Rest in peace. Just like my King of Astoria food account. I haven't posted in there in like a year. Well, Thursday was amazing.
Yeah.
Just watching from home. I mean, how did it even happen? Like Miller follows up his own shot. It somehow goes in. And then the Adam Fox backhander falling over just less than 90 seconds into OT. I mean, Larry will talk about it a little bit later, but that's one of those moments. Like if the Rangers go on a run, that's like one of the first ones on the highlight reel. The pump up video is that moment. Like that almost never happens in a hockey game ever in the final second.
100%. I mean, of course, it was the one game that I wasn't there for. And all I heard from everybody who was there was that one of the loudest they've ever heard the building before. So I can't imagine how electric it was in there when K'Andre followed up his shot. I mean, we'll talk about K'Andre with Larry in a little bit about his contract coming up. Yeah, I know. Honestly,
if you can,
every time K'Andre puts the puck in the back of the net, it's just like ka-ching, ka-ching.
He's the Daniel Jones of the Rangers. Like he's just getting more and more money each week.
Oh God, it's very enjoyable to watch. It really is, because I know how much not scoring that first goal until more than a few games into the season was weighing on K'Andre. And since he finally broke through, it's just piling on the points. 9 points in the last 7 games, 7-game point streak. He's just red hot right now on an absolute tear, getting some time on the power play too, which we talk with Larry, more than earned. But that's the thing though. It's probably a weird position for the Rangers, because to give him that opportunity on the power play, it's only driving up that price tag even more. And all the power to him, because he's earning every dollar that he's going to get thrown his way this offseason. Great game, no quit in New York, just absolutely playing to that mentality. And that's something that I think wasn't there in the first 2 months of the season. And I think that was probably the most concerning part about their start to the season, is that spark and that fight and that heart just wasn't there, which it seemed to be all of last season. Even when they weren't playing that well in the beginning and Igor was carrying them, they still had that oomph, that, something special that I feel like all playoff, contending teams need to have. And it just wasn't there the first 2 months of the season, but I think that it's really starting to come back, and that win over Dallas is the perfect example of that spark.
Bring the hashtag back. The slogan has returned. There's officially no quit in New York, and hopefully it'll be Miller time for a long time here. We'll see in the offseason, and Larry will talk about that in a few minutes, and also talk about Thursday. We might have another doozy on Thursday. I mean, you want to talk about expensive tickets. I can't imagine it's going to be less than 300 for the nosebleeds on Thursday, with the way the Bruins are playing at a historic level. 34-5-4 is almost like you can't even do that in a video game. Like in a fantasy video game with an all-star roster, we'll lose more games than that. So I'm excited for Thursday, Molly. That's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a huge game for the Rangers. They lost to Boston earlier in the season, right? Yeah.
It was a different team. Yeah. November 2nd.
Yeah. 5-2.
November 3rd,
that was a pretty lopsided game. I mean, Boston manhandled them, I'd go as far as say. But you're right, Jake, completely different team now, playing a different way, playing more cohesively. And that's what it's going to take to beat Boston. I mean, they are just on a tear right now. They're one of the greatest starts I think I've ever seen since I started watching the NHL. So it's going to be a measuring stick, which I feel like is a phrase that we said a lot last season, because the Rangers weren't quite yet considered part of the upper echelon of the NHL, but now they kind of are. And but Boston right now is at the tippy top of the NHL. So it's definitely going to be a measuring stick and an opportunity for them to get some revenge over that last game in November.
They're 10 points ahead of the next team in the Hurricanes in the NHL, and their goal differential, Molly, is 32 goals ahead of the next team in the Devils. I mean, that's almost just stupid. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So that'll be a good one. Well, Molly, you finished your trip around the globe with Columbus, Ohio. I mean, you could have picked a better location maybe for the last stop on the way, but that'll bring us to this before Larry joins us. You have accumulated your list. So now we're going to do top 5 arenas, right? Not cities.
We can do both.
Is pretty easy. Okay.
Let's do both.
Separate. Okay. So let's start with your top 5 cities then, your hockey cities to visit.
Okay. All right. This is in no particular order because I could never do that. This is just top 5 in general. I got to go.
Well, you got to have a number 1. You have to have one.
Fine. Okay, fine. If I had to go number 1, fine. For cities, I can say number 1 because I actually do have a number 1. I love Tampa. I live for Tampa. I don't know what it is. The arena, the hotels I stay at, the area, the food, the atmosphere, the weather. I mean, it's Florida. I mean, you can't really get much better than that. We always seem to go there for New Year's Eve time, so it's perfect to get away from the cold, and it's always perfectly timed to get some sun in. I love Tampa, and I've spent a lot of time in Tampa as well over the last 3 seasons, with the Islanders going to the conference final twice, and then the Rangers going there last season. Gotta love
Maybe it's become like a home to you. You've been there so many times, it's like a second home now or third home.
Seriously, I navigate that city like it's my own, as if it were New York, So I absolutely love Tampa. I love going there. Definitely it's got to be my number 1, but I can't rank the rest because I just can't.
All right, so 2 through 5 in cities.
Okay.
Let's go.
So Tampa, Vancouver, the views there, the mountains are just, you don't see that every day, let alone in a lot of cities. So I think Vancouver is absolutely beautiful. And the Rangers actually go from Carolina straight to Vancouver, and they're going to practice for 2 days in Vancouver. So we're going to get like 4 days in Vancouver coming up. So I'm really excited for that. Last time I was in Vancouver, it was really rainy, but it was still beautiful. I got to go shopping on the cobblestone streets in downtown Vancouver, and I just loved it. So very excited to go back. Next, got to be LA. Absolutely loved my time in LA. California was really fun. The city is very lively. And I do appreciate that. And then got to round it out with Denver and Vegas. Denver is beautiful. I always feel like I'm there during Christmas time. I love the way they decorate the streets, and there's Christmas trees on the streets, and the restaurants are pretty good too. So I always have a very homey feel when I'm in Denver. And then obviously Vegas is an absolute time. Yeah. Vegas is, I mean, what a brilliant idea by the NHL to expand to Vegas, because I love the market there too. I mean, it's a hockey town. It really is. Anywhere you go, you see Golden Knight stuff. And I think that was a surprise when I first went there. I didn't really expect it to be as gung-ho for hockey as they have turned out to be. So Vegas definitely rounds out that list.
I'm sure Magic Mike has a part in that. Vegas
maybe
made a few stops there. All right, I kind of like that. Vancouver is the one that surprised me a little bit. Tampa, I agree. I've been to that arena. Very nice arena, very modern.
Oh yeah.
And the weather's always good there, so you can't go wrong, and you're always laying by the hotel pool when you're in Tampa. So you don't exactly get that here. All right, so that's your top 5 cities. So now what's your number 1 arena?
Number 1 arena, I actually do have an answer for that too. Again, 2 to 5 will not be ranked, but number 1, I got to give it to Bell Center. I mean, in Montreal. It gives me goosebumps, and like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up when I think about it. There's so much history there. It just feels like the birthplace of hockey almost, like I just get that vibes when I walk into the arena. And especially the last time we were there earlier this month, you look at the state of the Canadiens right now, and, they're obviously having a really tough season. You would never know if you went to a game there and listened to the crowd and how into it they are. every block, every shot gets a reaction from the crowd. And I mean, it's obviously hockey in Canada is number one, and it really comes through at the Bell Center. I love it. I absolutely love it. Also, huge bonus points, hot dogs in between the first and second period.
God, here we go with the hot dogs.
No, free hot dogs in between the first and second periods. All the writers get up, they go down, they stand on a line, they get their singular hot dog. You're not allowed to bring it back to your seat. You all have to sit in the
hot
cafeteria.
Dog. You can't even take a second one if you want.
I don't know if you can. You might. I just never have. But it's just an experience, and you gotta love that.
I figured hot dogs factored into the number one ranking, of course. It had to. The Glizzy Gladiator here.
I love that. That's just like part of their between periods routine. Like I just love that. I just think it's great. I really do appreciate it. So yeah,
right,
Bell Center. Bell Center is just amazing. Okay,
I'm gonna have to visit that one. I wouldn't think that would have been number one, but I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, it didn't become number one really for me. I mean, it's always been one that I love. I was there for the draft this past summer, and that was really cool. I loved how they did it. I love that there was, everything's written in French, and it just really feels like hockey culture, if that makes sense, like the original type of hockey culture. So I love that. Okay. Next arenas, I got to go with Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. Double jumbotrons, double the fun. And I love the way that the Kraken branded everything. I mean, from the start, just the way that they listen to the community, to their fans, they just branded that place so well. They have like this escalator that goes down, and on either side, it's like holographic. It feels like you're literally going underwater, like, and they have animals, swimming on it, and like, it just is so tech and very high tech, and really immerses yourself in the experience and in their Kraken brand, which I just think was an absolute home run on their part. Everything, the name, the jerseys, love it all. Then I gotta go with Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, solely because of the media meal, the most variety, the largest spread. It's always rotating with different options, and of course they always have like every different type of Little Caesars pizza that you could ever dream of, which is always fun. So that's definitely up there, but mostly because of the food. But the cool thing about Little Caesars Arena is it feels like a ballpark almost. It feels like an indoor ballpark. It feels what I imagine Tropicana Field would feel like, if that makes sense to anybody listening. It just is huge. And it's like enclosed in a pretty interesting way. So I like that place too. Then I got to go with, this is probably going to be a surprise one for a lot of people. I would say Enterprise Center in St. Louis. I do like the media spread there as well. I like the view from the press box. I also had the best 3-cheese mac and cheese that I've ever had in my entire life in that press box. So easily, definitely up there. And then to round it out, good old Mullet Arena. And don't come for me, because I think it's awesome. I get the sentiment that, why do we have NHL players playing in a college arena? And I get it. Poor planning on the NHL's part, on the Coyotes' part. I mean, they couldn't even keep the lights on in the other arena, and they're going to be there for a few years, but I think it's an experience. And even though the players are sitting on folding chairs, I think that there's something magical about it. Very college hockey-esque. And I think some of the players who have come from the college hockey route can appreciate that. And it's always an experience there as well.
Interesting. So Mullet Arena makes a list. I could see that, the intimate setting, and it's actually a professional game and not like an AHL game or a minor league game. I could see why that's, cool for that kind of vibe. Interesting. Well, a guy who may or may not have had a mullet back in his heyday would be Larry Brooks. He joins us next on Up in the Blue Seats. All right, Molly, let's now chat with our Hall of Famer, Larry Brooks, who you can follow on Twitter at NYP_Brooksy. Speaking of Hall of Fame, Larry, last Thursday at the Garden was a Hall of Fame ending. Where does that ending, where does that, the crowd, the noise rank among some of the loudest and some of the best finishes you've seen?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, pretty much, because as notable and noteworthy and historic as their comeback was, the first 56 minutes, there wasn't very much. Um, I was actually thinking back to the game last year where Ryan Lindgren scored with, I think, 0.8 seconds to actually win the game for the Rangers. So, but this was, I mean, not only they tie it up in the final second, but then the overtime, the way that Fox scored, it was only about a minute and a half, I think, the overtime, but there was like an entire night's worth of entertainment packed into that, minute and a half of overtime and the final, 20, 30 seconds of regulation. It was crazy. It really was just crazy. It was like chaos was breaking out. It was wide open. It was fun. It really was. It was a fun ending. And I think everyone who left the building, like you make the point about the crowd, but I think everyone who left the building got their money's worth that night. They really did. And they'll come back, it was a wild ending.
The one game you weren't at, Molly, by the way. So Molly is clearly the bad luck charm, of course.
I know. Seriously. Speaking of K'Andre Miller, something I really wanted to ask you, Larry. I mean, he's just absolutely on fire since he scored his first goal of the season, just absolutely piling on the points, 7-game point streak right now, just playing at a different level. Obviously, he's the number one restricted free agent for the Rangers going into the offseason. So given their cap situation and what K'Andre is doing on the ice right now, I guess, what are your thoughts on what the contract could be, the term, the amount, just what are your speculations at this point?
Yeah, it would just be pure speculation.
Of course.
But first, before we get to that, I think actually one of the coach's most astute moves has been now in the last couple of games putting Miller on the second power play unit. This is and not to get away from the original question, but this is what players do. They earn time. And not to bring it back to Alexis Lafreniere, but seriously, and there's some rationale behind saying Lafreniere doesn't get this and Lafreniere doesn't get that, and Kakko doesn't get this, and Hedl doesn't get this, but K'Andre Miller wasn't getting second power play time either. Kravtsov had been on the second power play unit for a long time now.
And Sammy Blais.
Right. And Blais before that. But over the last, couple, 2-3 weeks since the lineup has kind of solidified, they were using 4 forwards on the second unit with Kravtsov, and Trouba was the only defenseman. But Miller has just demanded that time with his 5-on-5 play and his offensive flair and his ability to finish and his ability to set guys up. So he is now on the second power play unit because he earned the second power play unit time. That's all I'm saying. I don't know about the contract. I've actually been, I'm going to write about it at some point in the next little while. And so I have been researching second contracts for defensemen who are coming off entry level and don't have arbitration rights, remember? So they run the gamut. And I don't have it in front of me, but, Charlie McAvoy signed a 3-year deal. I think it was for $4.9. Is that something that K'Andre would be willing to do? Or is K'Andre looking to hit the 6, 7, 8-year home run? I don't know. I do know that, that the contract is that putting himself in good position for this contract seems to have been on his mind. So I don't know what kind of a negotiation it's going to be. It's very difficult to say, but most defensemen's second contracts are not of the 7-8 year variety. They are shorter, if you want to call them bridge. I don't know that a 3 years is necessarily a bridge, but maybe it is. I'm sure if K'Andre Miller were willing to do Charlie McAvoy's contract, and I think the Rangers would say, hey, Charlie McAvoy, as important as K'Andre Miller is, the Rangers can always say, look, you're on our second pair. Mm-hmm. Charlie McAvoy is considered, a Norris contender every year. I think though, if and again, I'm kind of speaking out of my hat because again, this is pure speculation, but I'm guessing that if K'Andre Miller were to take Charlie McAvoy's second contract, the Rangers would be good with that. I think. But listen, there are pressures coming from all over. And cap pressures coming from all over. We don't know what Lafreniere's second contract is going to look like. It's hard to imagine it would be much different than Kakko's. Lafreniere has better numbers. The numbers from last year, certainly better numbers off of his entry level than Kakko. So maybe it's a little bit higher, but honestly, we don't know. K'Andre Miller, if he's open to an offer sheet, that changes the dynamic. There's a lot for Drury to, that he's going to have to contend with in the offseason, which is again why it's so important for guys for their younger guys who are on entry level to make splashes. It's so important for them that Braden Schneider is an important player at this entry level, because in a couple of years he's coming up. So, the cap is just squeezing them hard, and the hard cap is making it, triply difficult for Drury as he goes forward. He has some very, very tough decisions ahead.
And also, speaking of the power play, Larry and I were just collaborating very, very hard on trying to figure out the statistics of the second power play unit over the last stretch or so. And we came to the conclusion that since December 15th, of the 10 power play goals that the Rangers have scored, 5 of them have come from the second unit, despite 2 of them being on an empty net. So I wrote about this today. And I guess Gallant is starting to give the second unit a little bit more time on the ice. And like you mentioned, Larry, putting K'Andre Miller, on that unit and, he's not as married to his personnel decisions and timing as he was so much earlier in the season, which is a good thing. But I personally still think that there could be more of a balance. And it's in the numbers that second unit, regardless who's on there, because they have the talent to put on there, they should probably have a little bit more time and a little bit more of an opportunity. I'm just curious how you see it.
Well, I see it pretty much the same as you do, but I think that when they go into their bye week, which is coming up after the 27th, they're off until their game on the 6th. Their bye week precedes the All-Star weekend, so they're off for a while. And I don't expect the coaching staff to be huddled over their numbers, for 8 days. I think they'll be enjoying themselves too, and they deserve it. But I would use that time if I were the coaching staff to take a hard look at the personnel on both units. Mm-hmm. I don't, not only shouldn't they be married to the minute 20, minute 30 first power play unit, I don't think the first power play unit personnel necessarily is the best they can come up with at this point. I'm not sure that Trocheck really fits in you put Trocheck, the right-hander, in, and you think he's going to replicate what Ryan Strome did, the righty. He's not. They're different players, completely different players. They're penalty killing units have adjusted to the Zibanejad one-timer. It's almost remarkable to me that he is as successful with it as he's been. I mean, there's so much focus on it now. The Rangers and as the penalty kill units put more focus on it, the Rangers are putting more focus on it, which seems to me to be a bit of a contradiction. They should look somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah.
Not that I'm down on the ice, and Mika spent a while with me the other day, explaining the power play, which I'm not going to be able to do here. But it's clear that they recognize that penalty kill units are attacking them differently. They're pressuring them up top. They're giving them no space at the top, and they're shading toward Mika. So if they don't have the ability to shift away from that as the first option, then maybe they need to take a look at the personnel. Maybe Filip Chytil should be there instead of Trocheck. Maybe Kakko. I haven't run numbers, but last year, the year before, when there were a couple of injuries, if Strome was out, if Panarin was out, Kakko was the player who went in. And the first power play unit, honestly, didn't miss much of a beat when Kakko was there. He's a possession monster at this point. So he's going to retrieve the puck. You're going to retrieve the puck. That's not really been a problem for them. Even with this unit, they have a lot of possession time, mostly on the outside, too often on the outside. But I would take a look, honestly, at Chytil. I would take a look at Kakko. I would visualize that. I'm not so sure that Trocheck belongs there. And so I would certainly contemplate personnel changes, but I think until the first power play unit can figure it out, if this is going to be the first power play unit going forward, until they can figure it out, then the second unit certainly has to get more time. And it's something I've been writing about for 2 years. And I remember the first time, it was during the middle of the 2021 season. So because the first power play unit just never came off, they just refused to come off. Now I don't think it's the same. I don't think there's any entitlement to it now. I don't think there's any arrogance to it now, where I think there was a couple of years ago. I think now their first unit is out there because they're trying to work on, they need to work on their game too. So what I would like to see once in a while is the second power play unit start. Honestly, I mean, it doesn't matter if the first line has been on, doesn't matter. They're still coming on for the start the power play. And I wouldn't be shocked if that changes. I'm not sure it's going to change against Boston. But the second power play unit right now is earning more time.
And if we're going with the theme of speculation, I just am curious where Gallant's reluctance is coming from when it comes to balancing the ice time. Part of me feels like he just wants to get that first unit going, because we've all seen what when they are clicking, even Trocheck being there or not, when that first unit is clicking, I mean, sometimes it's unstoppable.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. And you know how he believes in his top players.
Yeah.
Whether it's power play, 5-on-5, he rides his top guys. I mean, he believes in them. He empowers them, maybe to a fault at times. And I think so. I mean, I think, it was Lou Lamoriello who told me this. I'm sure he's not the originator of this thought and this concept, but we were talking one day and he said, your greatest strengths are also your biggest weaknesses. And we don't need to go into what those are. But I think that I think that applies pretty much to everybody. I think that's true. And I think one of Gallant's great strengths is his belief in his players, his belief in his top guys, his belief in veterans who have done it before. but I also think that can be a weakness too. I think they're, but listen, we fans, everyone have picked apart every move Gallant has made this year, every game. And yet they're 14-3-2 in their last 19. There's something about them that holds a team together. They play for them. I don't know what would have happened if they had lost to St. Louis back on December 5th. I don't know. But they didn't lose that game. They scored 3 in the third, and and that started the 14-3-2 run. So at a time when people were suggesting that the team was breaking apart, that Gallant, couldn't coach them anymore, well, he can, and I think too that there was we look at it as he has so many options, and this is something that Yager said. Yager's final year with the Rangers, he was going to get a lot of offers. He was going to become a free agent for the first time, and he was going to get a lot of offers. Of course, he went to the KHL. He went to Omsk, and that's what people expected as the year evolved. But I was talking to him about how many teams might be interested in him when he became a free agent. He said, "I don't want so many teams." He said, "I don't want so many choices." He said, "The more choices you have, the better chance you have of making the wrong one." With Gallant, they're just, you want to play Kravtsov, you want to play Lafreniere, you want to play Kakko, but you need to play Hedl, but you also are giving Zibanejad 23 minutes. You're going to get Kreider out as often as you can. So there's not enough time to go around forever. And though I do pick, I don't agree with some of his personnel moves. He's done a pretty good job to get this team that really hasn't played all that well, all that consistently, into a spot where they have a 7-point bulge in a playoff spot right now, into a spot where they're going 14-3-2. They beat, it's not that they're just beating up on bad teams. They beat Carolina. They came back against a really good Dallas team. They beat Minnesota. So it's been a fairly reasonable follow-up to last season at this point. I mean, I think they could be better, but for the way they played, I think their record's pretty good.
We'll close with this, Larry. The Bruins come to the Garden Thursday. We expect maybe Kreider will be back. We'll see. 34-5-4. I mean, where does this rank among one of the great starts that you've ever covered since covering the league?
No, listen. I just wrote the other day. They're playing at a pace that if they continue, they would have the highest percentage in the modern era. I don't expect that. I mean, I don't look at them as the greatest team of all time, but they're going out and playing, and I think this is going to be a really interesting tool of evaluation for the Rangers. I don't think you look at one game in January and say, well, that's it. But I think this is going to be enlightening for the Rangers to play a team at this level, a team that goes straight at their opponents. They just come hard, and they're deep, and they're tough, and they're skilled. So this is going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, Thursday we'll be rocking at the Garden. Make sure you read Larry's coverage in the Post on Post Sports Plus and at Twitter, NYP_Brooksy. Larry, talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Molly, good job from Larry Brooks there. That'll wrap up episode 110 of Up in the Blue Seats, our Rangers podcast from the New York Post. Thanks to Andrew Hartz for helping me produce the show. You can watch this show if you are right now on YouTube. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, comment. What were your favorite NHL arenas? Let us know which ones you like the most. If you agree, disagree with Molly's list, you can comment or you can tweet at Mollie Walker, 2 E's, 2 R's, and tweet me at Jake Brown Radio. And catch up on all old episodes, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, wherever you get podcasts. Molly, I'm actually going to be an uncle. Some breaking news into the newsroom is I will be Uncle Jake. And
Oh my God,
yeah,
Mazel Tov.
I think I'll be a good uncle. I think he'll represent with the bald head,
You'll
I,
definitely be a funkle, a fun
well, there was a
uncle.
baby at the bar the other day, and I just kept squeezing
What?
his cheeks, and I just
Oh,
it was
hold
a
up.
friend of mine. It was
Hold
a friend
up.
of mine's baby. They were watching the Rangers game. It was
Why is there a baby
or
at a
the
bar though?
it was the Giants game. Sorry, it was the Giant game, and people were watching. I don't know. It's a family kind of bar. It's like it's Catch Astoria, so it's a big place.
I don't know about that one, but all
Yeah,
right.
well, they had the earphones on, so it was
Okay.
noise canceling, so he couldn't hear anything. So the baby was good, but I'm
That's
looking
some
forward to it.
that's some dedication.
Well,
You
my
got to bring
goal
the baby to the bar.
you got to bring the baby. That's gonna be my what do I? He's my nephew. Is that what I
Nephew.
gotta
There you
learn the
go.
names for these? This is new for me. This is new territory. I gotta make sure my brother's probably gonna raise him a Yankee fan. I'm gonna do my best to try to make him Mets. We'll see what he decides, but yeah, big news. So I'm still about a decade away, probably at this rate, maybe 5 to 10 years from one of my own. So I'll take I'm acting like it's a boy. It could be a girl. I'll raise, the girl, the Mets fan. There we go. Well, Uncle Jake is on the way. Well, thanks everybody for listening. For Mollie Walker, Andrew Hartz, I'm Jake Brown. We'll return next week with another new episode. Thanks for listening to Up in the Blue Seats.